Yeah, thank you for joining me this morning, this afternoon, this evening. In the UK, it's almost 1 o'clock, although I find that every day is 1 o'clock at the moment in lockdown. I have a real passion about this topic, and I had a number of motivations to create this presentation. Every time I deliver an implementing safe class, I always get asked, what would be a good set of metrics at the ART program level? Secondly, I want people to avoid the trap of using vanity metrics, and I'll talk more about that later as well. And the final one, and I suppose the key one as well, I want a set of metrics that every organization should be able to get their hands on from the get-go. So that was my motivations. So yes, hello, my name is Darren Wilmshurst. I spent almost 30 years in the corporate world, some of that being a bank manager. I joined radtac in 2012, really to explore my passion and trying to help organizations become more effective. Those that don't know, radtac was acquired by CPrime early this year, back in February this year. I became an SBC in 2013. So one of the early adopters of SAFE in the UK. I came an SBCT in 2017 and last year recognised as a SAFE Fellow, which was a hugely proud moment for me. I guess we might all recognise this. We've just done PR planning. Maybe it's our first PR planning, and we're really pleased with ourselves that we got to the end of it and survived, and we got a set of committed objectives. But I always say that the real work starts now. There's no point having to do PR planning and then we don't deliver on those commitments at the end. What was the point of all that as well? And for me, it's really, really important that we demonstrate, if we've created this new ways of working, which would have been without this disruption, we need to show that how we have turned the dials, how we have made the organization more effective. So we need to work on a new way. So, and for the sake of this presentation, let's talk about lean agile ways of working. How do we demonstrate we've made those improvements? And how do we demonstrate that new way of working was worth it? How do we show that we have turned those dials to show that the chain is sustainably improving in its ability to generate value? So the best way to do that is empirically, and we need to baseline. The trouble is that people measure the wrong things. They talk about how many agile teams they've created. They confuse velocity with productivity. They talk about how many people they have trained. Don't get me wrong, training is important if we have an education problem, but the number of people trained tells us what. So this is a great quote from James Wilbanks. The problem, as it often is, are the metrics. It's a situation where if you can't count what's important, you make what you can count important. So I felt it was not enough to look at one value alone. We need to take a balanced view, a scorecard, if you like. In the end, I settled for 4 domains: team health, quality, productivity, and predictability. Each domain has its own set of basic metrics that every organization should be able to get their hands on from the get-go. We're going to look at each domain in turn. But before we start on the first domain, we need to understand the difference between leading and lagging indicators. So lagging indicators are typically output orientated, easy to measure but hard to improve or influence, while leading indicators are typically input orientated, hard to measure but easy to influence. Okay, let me illustrate that with an example. I'm going to say for many of us, certainly for me over the last 18 months, a personal goal is weight loss. Too many takeaways, too many red wines in the evening. So a clear lagging indicator that is easy to measure is your weight. You jump on the scales in the morning and you have your answer. Your weight is your weight. Easy to measure. You cannot influence it in any shape or form. You can try and stand on one leg, it will still be your weight. However, for weight loss, there are two leading indicators: calories taken in and calories consumed or burned. These are two indicators that are easy to influence but hard to measure. If you're going for lunch in a restaurant and the calories aren't listed, then you don't know how many calories you've got. If you haven't got some sort of fitness tracker on here, you don't know how many calories you've burned as well. So, difference between leading and lagging indicators. So, in team health, we're going to look at staff turnover, sick days, EMPS, and some team and technical agility assessments. So, for me, I don't know about your organizations, but staff retention is becoming more and more important, particularly for organizations that have a difficult acquisition process as well. So we need to understand our staff turnover rate as well. But staff turnover is definitely a lagging indicator. They have already left the building. But if this is trending over time, monthly and annually, it might point to an underlying issue. Independent exit interviews are important here to understand the reasons why your friends are leaving. So human resources definitely are your friends here as well. Staff sickness is less lagging. At least they've not left the organization, but they're still not at work. But however, if their sickness persists, maybe that might be an indication that there might be an environmental hygiene issue, or maybe we're not working at a sustainable pace as well. So we need to understand some of those as well. However, I never, ever publish this metric. I don't want people to feel that they have to come to work. If they are ill, then they need to recover. For me, it's a more of a covert measure in terms of trying to understand whether some underlying issues around either hygiene or sustainable pace as well. However, one of my favorite metrics is something that I got from M. Campbell Pretty in her book. I can find it very quickly. Tribal Unity. I like this book. It's really small, only about 100 pages. I like books about that as well. I'm hoping that most of you are familiar with NPS. If you're not, then I guess most of you would have been a victim of an NPS scoring. For example, you'll take your car to a garage to get it serviced, and then a day or two later, you'll either get an email or a phone call saying, on a score of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, would you recommend this garage to a friend? And what we say is 0 to 6 are detractors, 7 or 8 are passives, and 9 and 10s are promoters. We effectively ignore all the passives, and then we take the detractors from the promoters. It's not unusual for your NPS score to be negative. A lot of organizations measure this as well. Anything that's positive is considered good. Anything north of 30 is considered to be excellent. Research has shown that the better your NPS score is, the more revenue you get in. I guess it makes sense because I guess more people are recommending your services, I guess. We do exactly the same thing. If we're working on an art, we do an EMPS. So we write to all the people on the Agile Release Train and scale on a scale of 0 to 10. Would you recommend a colleague to come and work on this art? And we work out the same score. And again, do not be surprised if you do this for the first time, particularly if you've gone from a maybe more traditional way to a more agile way of working, that it might be negative. Again, what I don't show is the raw score. What I show is the trending score over time. So if the first one was maybe, I don't know, -30, and the next time we do it, maybe a PI later, it's now -20, I show the improvement. So we've got a 10% improvement points in our EMP scores as well. So that's really important as well. And again, I probably smooth that out over time because you might get some little bumps and stuff over the way, but just show it over a period of time as well. Now the score in itself is okay, but for me, it's just a bit of context. So I always say when I do the scoring, I also ask a supplementary question. If you're 0 to 6, what am I doing wrong? If you're 7 and 8, what do I need to get you to a 9 or 10? And if you're 9 or 10, what am I doing well? So that's really important for me. So it's a very simple score with one simple follow-up question as well. And then the final one is these team and technical agility assessment. Again, if you're familiar with SAFE, you're probably familiar with the new business agility assessments, and then the deeper dive into some of the competencies as well. You can download this assessment from the Scale Agile website as a spreadsheet. If you're a member of the community platform, you get access to 2 partners that run this online, Agility Health and Comparative Agile. Again, if you use those ones, you get a bit more data analytics, a bit more data science around it, and you get a bit more in terms of benchmarking against other teams and other industries as well. Even though it says it's a self-assessment, I would always encourage you that it's facilitated by a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, just to give it some rigor in terms of the answer you're giving as well. 2 of the domains you see here talk about agility health of the teams and the team of teams. The third one down the bottom left there talks about built-in quality, and we'll cover that later as well. Again, it's really important here. I never ever compare teams health agility with another team, because as soon as you do that, you make it a competition. As soon as you do that, everyone's a 5. So this is, for me, assessment as an introspective view of the team's health that they should look at in terms of how do we improve our team health as well. Now, you might have asked, well, why did I start with team health? I didn't, because that's most people will start with productivity or predictability or some other stuff, because I think this is hugely important. This is the one that gets ignored by most organizations, and yet the maths behind this is really compelling. So according to Gallup, 80% of employees worldwide are neutral, disengaged, or actively disengaged. These disengaged employees suffer from higher absenteeism, lower productivity, and lower profitability as well. Or put it another way, 34% of employees' annual salary is lost to disengagement. This is why we keep talking about our people, our most important asset. We say it. I see lots of organizations that don't walk that talk as well. Really important that that we understand the team health of our teams, of our agile streams as well. Look at quality. So again, 4 measures here for quality: escape defects, mean time recovery, test automation, and also code quality as well. So if we look at the number of escape defects, is definitely a lagging indicator, and is almost a measure of how much I have upset my customers, and then how long it takes them to remain upset. The mean time to recovery. So definitely lagging indicators. However, if we can build in quality, we can reduce the number of escape defects and the time for fix. QED, we have more time to create new and exciting features to delight our customers as well. So increasing test automation and static code analysis will help to trap issues before our customers find out as well. So they are much more leading indicators of quality as well. This is an old study from 2003. I can't find a more recent study around this as well. But these figures feel low given the salaries and overheads of the technical teams now as well. But what they're saying here is, if we trap something early in our process, and this was probably a bit more traditional in terms of our gathering or refinement phase, then it's $100 to fix. If it's found in a QA testing phase down the line, $1,500 to fix. And we find in production, $10,000 to fix as well. There we go. There's the mass of getting the quality wrong. That's why that's important. Productivity. Only 3 measures here: feature lead time, story cycle time, and number of deploys. Again, I'm sure we'll have a bit of a conversation about that particular one. I'm hoping most of you might have seen something like this as well. Those of any been familiar with SAFe might recognize even this particular thing here as well. We talk about activity ratio. Karen Martin does, or flow efficiency. So if we look here, there's a request that takes an hour to fill out. We email it to a supervisor. That supervisor has it's in her inbox for a week before she gets around to approving it. It takes an hour to approve it, send it off to technical assessment. Again, it gets delayed in that email inbox for 2 weeks. The technical assessment only takes an hour, doesn't take long. We sign it to a developer. That developer's busy, doesn't get around to working on it until 2 weeks later. But when they do the work, it's only an hour's work, not that long to do. And they have to send it to verification. They take time to look at it. And again, it's only an hour to do the verification. And then we finally send it to deploy, but there's a week's delay to get it deployed. So the actual work spent on that particular request was only 6 hours. But the wait time was 7 weeks. And if we assume 8 hours a day and 5 days a week, the flow efficiency is 2%, which is the process time divided by the lead time times 100%. So that means that's been sat in a queue waiting for something to happen for 98% of the time. Now, let me give you a real example. There's one of the largest shipping companies in the world. They had a bug in their invoicing system. They're under invoicing their clients by $200,000 per week. Not great. The good news is they found the bug and it took them 105 hours to fix the bug. Happy days. It took them 38 weeks to get it live, by which days they had under invoiced their clients by $8 million US. Okay, that's not good. So what we need to do, can we fix that bug faster? Okay, let's think about the maths here again. So if we fix that bug faster, let's assume we can fix that bug faster by 10%. 105 hours, 10% improvement, 10 hours. It's about a day's work. Hardly scratches the surface. What we should be thinking is, can we reduce the delays by 10%? So 38 weeks, if we can reduce that by 10%, that's 4 weeks. That's $800,000 as well. What we find is most organizations I work in, the average worldwide for flow efficiency is somewhere between 1% and 5%. So most of your problems with your process will surface as delays. Most of your time getting to market will be a result of these delays. Reducing these delays is the fastest way to reduce time to market, but without anyone working any harder. The trouble is, we need to identify these delays. We need to visualize these delays. This is the one thing that if I'm working with RTEs, I will bang on about time after again. Their principal responsibility as an RTE is to optimize the flow of value. In order to do that, you need to visualize the flow of value. This is a prototypical Kanban board as well. It's the primary responsibility of RTEs to optimize that flow of value. So we need to understand, we need to model out the steps that a feature comes into our system all the way to the point at which it is delivered into our customers' hands. We need to understand where those queues are, where those bottlenecks are. And as RTEs, we need to tackle them with a veracity that is unsurpassed. So once we see where those bottlenecks are, we need to remove those bottlenecks. But first thing we need to do, we need to visualize that new production line of creating those features as well. One of the key agile principles is to visualize and limit work in progress, manage queue lengths, and reduce batch sizes. Why? Because again, those have been on a safe course and done the penny game. Smaller batches go through the system faster with lower variability. So smaller stories facilitate fast and more reliable flow. So if our iteration is 2 weeks, then a story needs to be small enough to be completed with 1 iteration. Ideally 1 to 5 days, a good average is 2 to 3 days as well. And yet, when I go into organizations, we still see stories that are taking more than 10 days. Now, there could be delays that we need to focus on, or more commonly, the story is just too big. Then we need to look at patterns for splitting user stories. Maybe I'll get Sylvia put in the chat, maybe look no further than a great article by Richard Lawrence on patterns for splitting stories. Great article on that as well. And he's just updated that article as well. So this is one that might create a bit of discussion. Continuous deployment is the process takes a validated feature into a staging environment and deploys them into the production environment where they are readied for release. They are not released. It's in a passive state. Release on demand is a process that deploys the new functionality into a production and releases it immediately or incrementally to customers based on demand. It's now in the hands of our customers, an active state. So deployment is a passive state. It's in the live environment, not switched on. Release is where it's actually deployed and it's in the customer's hands. Now, I generally get organizations to focus on deploys, not releases, because the decision on when and what to release requires careful consideration and requires a customer-centric mindset. Let me give you an example. I've worked with an organization that deploys orange boxes on walls in commercial properties to monitor utilities, security, aircon, all that sort of stuff as well. They sell these orange boxes through 3 sellers. Those resellers will only come in every 6 months to retrain. So they only release to their customers, resellers, every 6 months. I could manage that. I could measure it, but it'll be the same. I was working in 2015. If I went back now, they only do 2 releases a year. There's no point. So for me, I like to measure deploys. However, depending on your context, there may be merit in tracking both as well. However, when I was at the SAFE Summit, I think it was in San Diego a few years back now, Gene Kim, one of the authors of the DevOps Handbook, was on stage doing a keynote, and he was saying now the table stakes for a number of deploys for an organization is 10 per day. It might be an interesting conversation when we get into the regular later in terms of how many deploys do your organizations do per day, and that's why he said the table stakes. People say, well, yeah, but I work in a legacy organization and I've got all this stuff and stuff like that as well. Read his book. I'm not particularly a technical person, and I was persuaded to read this book. I did read it, and I read it as in an agile way. So I read 25 pages a day. There's some great case studies in there about organizations that have legacy organizations, legacy platforms that can still do this stuff as well. So there's a great example in there as well. And then predictability, quite a few measures there as well. First one is compares actual business value achieved to planned business value. Again, if we're doing PR planning, in the second team breakout on day 2, business owners circulate and sign business values to the PI objectives from low to high, effectively 1 to 10, we know what's important to you, what's not important to you. And then at the end of the PI, as part of the PI system demo, the teams meet with their business owners to self-assess the business value they've achieved. And effectively, did you achieve all the functionality to the required quality in the required time frame as well? Each team's plan versus actual business value is then rolled up to a program level to give this program predictability measure, which is the thick line on that slide there as well. Again, my personal preference, I tend not to show the team ones. That's something I'd want to have a conversation with the team separately. People then go, well, this particular team here down here, oh, they didn't do very well, and we need to have a conversation with them. Well, yeah, but actually, they might have said, well, there was something really important for this team, and we decided to sacrifice our own objectives to make sure we hit this because this was more important. So again, it's the context here is really important as well. So I tend to show the thick line through here and have a separate conversations with the teams separately about their own individual scores as well. Program velocity is not a metrics. Let me be clear about that. But I do need to know the capacity of my train for forecasting and road mapping as well. And the positive aspect of tracking features planned to actual is that it provides context for the program predictive measure as well. Let me give you something what I mean by that. One company I worked with said their predictability was about 80% all the time. Well, happy days, well done. However, they were only completing 4 to 5 features per PI, and I think there was about 10 teams on the train as well, and the business was expecting much more. So it's a signal. We need to do some discovery to see if there's a problem as well. So predictability is a measure that I focus on as well. I ask senior execs saying if you could only take one pill, which is the blue pill or a red pill, and the blue pill is predictability and the red pill is productivity, which pill would you take? 9 times out of 10, they will just say, we'll take the blue pill. We just want to know that you're going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver as well. So that's why I think predictability is really important before. We need to get to a state where we make a commitment and we deliver those commitments. Over time, of course, we want to improve our productivity, but we need to be predictable in the first state as well. So here are the summary of the basic metrics, and again, all of those you should be able to get your hands on. It shouldn't require a lot of analysis or to get your hands on them. All these measures should be easy to get as well. However, what's missing? Actually, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to ask a question. What's missing in the words metrics?
A human element, interpreting them?
Maybe. So I was presenting a few years back at a conference in Washington, and you might recognize that chap on the left because I think he presented at the last RTE circle. Phil Gardner, he's quite a character. I know Phil really well. I think I was doing a lightning talk, and I was just showing these basic metrics, and Phil stood up and said, Daz, where's the value we've created for all our customers? And I go, yeah, you're right, we haven't talked about the value. And I said, but that's something quite hard to measure. And he goes, well, yeah, I know it's hard to measure, but that's not a good answer. And I remember doing an implementing safe class, and someone asked me in the implementing class, said, what's the definition of value? And I said, well, it means different things to different people. Well, that's not a very good answer either. I said, no, but it's true. What's safe definition of value? I said, I don't know. So I went home that night and I scoured around all the frameworks and is a definition of value from safe. And there's not, you can't find one. So I came back and said, I'm sorry, there's no definition of value. And so, it does mean different things to different people. My children are valuable to me, but I said, well, that's not very good. I said, oh, no, it's not. And I was, probably a few classes later, and I was regaling this story, and someone said, Darren, I can probably help you here. I thought that would be really helpful as well. And this is something that's come from Bain and Company. And they actually say in their article that what customers truly value can be difficult to pin down. The amount and nature of value in particular product or services lies in the eye of the lies in the eye of the beholder. So yeah, but Bain have identified 30 elements that fell into 4 categories. And it's not always about pounds and pence. It's not about cost saving or revenue, which very much sits in that functional element of that triangle as well. Completing a training course, passing an exam and receiving your digital badge can be seen as emotional value. You see there over here as well, badge value. However, a Fitbit exercise tracking products focus on life-changing element of motivation. So again, that might be, you know, up here in terms of life-changing. And again, I don't know if you're familiar with it, some of probably our American colleagues that are on the call today, Tom's give away one pair of shoes to needy people for every pair bought by a customer. This might appeal to a select group of people who are charitable and talks to maybe their self-transcendence as well. What they do say here is that, you know, that even though there are 30 elements here, the more of those you click on, you gain a higher loyalty and sustain revenue growth as well. So it's not just about picking on one of those. If we can keep more of those elements, the better as well. And I suppose what I'm saying here is that reflecting on all of that, my recommended safe metrics are probably proxy metrics for that value as well. If we hopefully by getting a lot of these things right, they will ultimately feed into the value that we create for our customers as well.